Good morning, Ambassador Bolton.
Good morning. Glad to be with you.
Appreciate you being with us. So let's start with this. There's obviously some major news this morning in regard to hostages finally being freed by Hamas. There is a pause, a ceasefire in place for the next 4 to 5 days as this process begins. What do you make of it?
Well, obviously, people are hoping that that the women and children, perhaps up to 50, perhaps more, that Hamas basically kidnapped on and after October the 7th will be released. But I have to say that when you get past the understandable, immediate emotion about seeing these perfectly innocent people be restored to their families, you have to ask whether this whether you want to call it a pause or a truce or a ceasefire, because people are beginning to use those terms interchangeably. You have to ask whether this is in Israel's true interest, and by the way, in the interest of the United States, because let's not forget, this is not simply a Hamas attack on Israel. This is a gathering of surrogates, terrorist groups, and others, funded, armed, supported by Iran. Their target today is Israel, the little Satan, but let's not forget they call us the great Satan. So we have a real interest here in what unfolds in this conflict, and I'm very worried about the Biden administration's clear pressure on the Netanyahu government in Israel to cut this deal.
No, I think you make a good point in that the deal seems disproportionate, right? There's 50 hostages in exchange for 150 Palestinian prisoners. You wonder what the overall message is there. Obviously, we are in a position where we want to see not just the hostages exchanged and for the innocent women and children to be returned to Israel, but we also want to see the violence conclude and it to stop. Now, whether or not that is in the best overarching goal, as you mentioned, for the region, for Israel, and, for this conflict, that may not be the case, but that is the pressure that the administration is feeling here in this country. And I think you're correct in saying that they're also exerting that pressure on Israel.
Yeah, look, I mean, there are multiple things at work here. I do think the White House is under enormous pressure from the left wing of the Democratic Party, which is largely pro-Palestinian.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I wouldn't say anti-Israel, although some of them clearly are. And that, in turn, explains the pressure that the White House is applying on Israel. As you say, simply exchanging one Israeli for 3 Palestinians in and of itself is a mistake. And let me just say that the 50 Israelis who are going to be exchanged appear to be predominantly women and children. I think there are some Americans in there. It's not entirely Israelis. The 150 prisoners that Israel is going to release are people who have committed crimes, in some cases violent attacks. These are not innocent people that Israel picked up the way Hamas kidnapped innocents on October the 7th. Israel will be releasing criminals at a ratio of 3 to 1 for innocent people. Just like the Biden administration unfroze $6 billion of assets to get 5 Americans released a few months ago, this is a clear mistake. You do not trade for the release of hostages, number one. Number two, the ceasefire, and I understand the Israeli military is said to have accepted it. I'd like to know how happily they accepted the ceasefire, is something that Israel's opponents want to stretch as far as they can go. And one, I think, really bad term in this deal is to say that the ceasefire truce can be extended day by day if Hamas releases 10 people per day. And what that says is you are giving your adversary control over the length of this ceasefire. I simply cannot understand how anybody could see that as being a sensible thing to do. And then finally, at the insistence of Hamas, every day during the pause, there will be a 6-hour moratorium on aerial surveillance over the Gaza Strip, not just by Israel, but according to the White House this morning, including U.S. surveillance. Well, what do people think is going to happen during that 6 hours? Hamas is going to be repositioning itself. It's going to be extricating some of its leaders, moving hostages. Who knows what? This is a gift to Hamas that that the potential cost to Israel is just incalculable.
Yeah, I have long struggled with, the United States not clearly defining what our goals here, while also being heavy-handed when it comes to Israel and Netanyahu. What are we hoping to accomplish? How are we hoping that this ends? What are we looking, to do here? Because we'd be better served in regard to these types of negotiations for hostages. If it is our goal to have all the hostages released, then by all means, that you do whatever it takes in order for that to happen, because that appears is what we're doing. But with that comes, as you're referencing, some significant issues that may not be in the best long-term interests of our country. This reminds me very much of the Iran deal, where we wanted a specific outcome, which is not clearly stated in this instance, and that is for the war to end. That is for all the hostages to be released, and whatever has to happen for that to happen. But we're not saying that. Your thoughts?
Well, I think it's worse than that, actually. Netanyahu has said what the government of Israel's objective is, and I don't know of any significant dissent inside Israel to his stated goal, and that is the elimination of Hamas as a political and military force. Now, they have barely started that project, and nonetheless, at the beginning, Biden went to Israel and he said, "We're with you." I think the hidden agenda here from Hamas and Iran and all of its allies is to sap the spirit of the White House, which is pretty sapped already, to continue through to that objective. I don't know what effect it will have in Israel, but the focus on the hostages, while it's understandable from a humanitarian point of view, is really not taking into account the opportunity cost for Israel in this kind of pause. There are 220 roughly hostages. There are 9 million Israelis who in the north are under attack from Hezbollah and who face the risk of attack in the future, like October the 7th, from Hamas. Is the U.S. really supporting Netanyahu's objective to eliminate Hamas? I have my doubts.
So that's what I think. I think that once the hostages are all released, if that happens, and it seems that pathway has been put in place, I think that then our interests pretty much as a country and from a public standpoint dissipate. And I think that the administration's interests leave as well. And then it's going to be Israel continuing in a disproportionate attack on Hamas for a sustained period of time, and as a result, Gaza. And that our interest is going to pretty much be gone as a country, and public opinion is going to shift to be more pro-Palestinian. So that's how I see this heading, because I think that most Americans, felt what happened on October the 7th was horrific. It was Hamas's fault. We needed to get to that. We needed to support Israel in exacting some measure of revenge. We needed to get the hostages out, particularly the Americans. Once those objectives are reached, I think that public opinion shifts dramatically on this, and it shifts in a way that is against Israel.
I think you're right on the public opinion score. I think the other thing that people simply will not focus on here is what to do with the population of Gaza. Right. And I think in part it's because we have simply misled ourselves for 75 years. 75 years since the formation of Israel, we have treated quote-unquote Palestinians as refugees. There is no other group in modern times where refugee status has been hereditary. When you become a refugee for political reasons or others, doctrine, international humanitarian doctrine, is you're either returned to your country of origin or you're resettled somewhere else. They're never going back to Israel. That's pretty clear. They should be resettled. Gaza is not a viable economic entity. It's a big refugee camp. The problem is that the natural location for resettlement, other Arab countries, has not been available because the Arab governments, which weaponized Palestinians for decades against Israel, don't want to take the Palestinians really any more than the Israelis do.
Right.
It's a terrible dilemma, but Gaza is not a viable solution. Simply not a viable solution. And people are going to have to address that. Talking about putting the Palestinian Authority in charge of Gaza after this is over, which the administration has said is a delusion.
And that, to me, as we conclude here, is the biggest part of this that never gets, really discussed. And if you want to look at why there is the pro-Palestinian feeling that exists, it's because of the living conditions of Gaza. It's because of the belief that those individuals have a right to land within Israel, and that inability to solve that dispute in any way that makes sense for all sides, results in Israel governing over the Palestinians and shutting off their electricity and doing things that a governance that has that type of authority does, and that obviously creates a discontent amongst those individuals. That is going to remain after this, but there still is no solution that will be long-standing and prevent something like this from happening over and over again through the history of time moving forward.
Look, for thousands of years, Gaza was basically a path from Egypt to the rest of the Middle East. It's not a city as such. The whole infrastructure we see built up there has been in the course of Palestinian refugee status, and it's not a viable solution, but it is a breeding ground for the likes of Hamas. And our failure even to acknowledge that we need to work with our Arab friends to find ways to ease their fears about Hamas simply growing in their own countries once they're removed from the Gaza Strip.
As always, appreciate your time. Have a great Thanksgiving, and we'll catch up soon.
Well, likewise, and to you and all your listeners, great Thanksgiving. Take care.